I didn't ask anything. That's off. You have a copy of the minutes? Any questions? Additions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to be approved.
So moved.
Got any? All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Any questions on the transfers? As usual, from now till the end of June, we're going to have several. If there's any questions? Entertain a motion on the transfers. Charlie? Yes. No, it didn't. Yeah. All in favor? That is unanimous. Any questions on the bills or hand checks?
Motion approved.
Is there a second? All in favor? That's unanimous. The one on Hamilton Hinkle, that was Elk Lick. We'll get about a third of that back. They did about a mile of it. We did the rest. So I don't know exactly. How much was the exact amount, JR? You remember?
$293,000. Total bill
Yeah, there was 291. I'm talking about from the state.
from the state was $107,000.
We'll get refunded on this.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then minutes need to show that David Livingston and Alvin Lyons both completed their training units and will receive their check for that. We have resolution 1502 for the cooperative road aid. I'll ask Glenn to read that resolution.
This is a resolution adopting and approving the execution of a county road aid co-op program contract between the Fiscal Court and the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet Department of Rural and Municipal Aid. Fiscal year beginning July 1, 2015 is provided in the Kentucky Revised Statutes and accepting all roads and streets referred to therein as part of the county road system. Be it resolved by the Fiscal Court that the Fiscal Court does hereby accept all roads and streets referred to in said contract as being part of the county road system. And the Fiscal Court does hereby ratify and adopt all statements, representations, warranties, covenants, and agreements contained in said contract, and does hereby accept said contract, and by such acceptance agrees to all the terms and conditions therein stated. And the county judge executive of the county is hereby authorized and directed to sign said contract as set forth on behalf of the Fiscal Court of Scott County. And the county clerk of Scott County is hereby authorized and directed to certify thereto. And there are lines for those who vote for or against the acceptance.
This is the same contract we've signed every year, and all 120 counties signed. We talked about it in the workshop. Any questions on that?
Motion approved.
All in favor of the resolution? Okay, it is unanimous. Thank you. Also, we have the budget ordinance, second reading. There you go.
This is the second reading and adoption of the Scott County proposed budget ordinance for fiscal year 2015-2016, scheduled to be held at the courthouse on May 8, 2015 at 9 a.m. Ordinance 15-01, budget summary. An ordinance relating to the annual budget and appropriations, be it ordained by the Fiscal Court of Scott County, Kentucky. Pardon me. Section 1, the following budget for fiscal year 2015-2016 and the amounts stated are appropriated for the purposes indicated. General fund, the total is $22,650,604. Road fund, $8,943,320. Jail fund, $2,955,979. The LGEA fund, $300,000. McCracken fund, $3,000. Social services or the hospital trust fund, $1,000. The total budget appropriations, $34,853,903. Section 2, this ordinance shall be published in the newspaper by title and summary within 30 days following adoption. Section 3, this ordinance becomes effective upon passage and publication.
Any questions? That's exactly like what we had first reading on and talked about it on numerous occasions. So, if any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve second reading. Bill. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. We also have a contract with Simplex Grinnell on monitoring the fire alarm system, the sprinkler system, and the backflow system. It's the same price it was last year, which is a total of $4,504. And need, if you so desire, to continue this.
Which buildings are covered by this agreement?
Do what?
Which buildings
It's,
does that cover?
it covers the courthouse. I mean, look all down through here to make sure I got everything straight. It is the courthouse. Yeah.
It's only the courthouse?
Yes.
For this renewal, there may be more renewals if other buildings use them.
Yeah, we have them on all the buildings, on the work of different buildings. This is for the courthouse.
Motion to renew the contract.
Any second? All right. Chad, all in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Lacey was here explaining the PDR program at the last meeting, and one of the several things at the last, in the request early on, they requested the money, $150,000 that had been approved by the court in the 2013-14 budget. And John brought me a letter where we had approved it and told them basically signed by that court. And I want everybody to understand, one court can't obligate another. That's we understand that. But in 2014, when the budget was approved, it said, please consider the letter as commitment to support the Scott County PDR program on behalf of the Scott County Rural Land Management Board, Inc. The Scott County Fiscal Court has committed funds for the fiscal year 2014 in the amount of $150,000 to help support this program. The Scott County PDR program, under the control and direction of the Scott County Rural Land Management Board, will ensure that the county's agricultural heritage and culture are preserved, as well as vital farmlands and soils. Now, also in the letter that we got from John, they were asking for $400,000 in the next budget. And I talked to John before he ever came, and there's no way that with the budget like it is, that we could afford to put that much money in it. We could put a little bit, or we could put none. But, and there was none budgeted in the budget we just approved. But I feel very sincere in saying that I think we should pay this that we committed back in 2014. And we go back a few years when this started, and what we do with other programs, we give the money when it is needed. Because if we, well, the first time we had almost $1 million that we gave to the PDR program, and at that time we were drawing 5 or 6% interest. Well, if we'd give the money to them instead of the county getting the interest, they would have gotten the interest. But when they needed the money, then we paid them. Well, that's the same thing that has happened with this amount of money. They continued on with the program, John, just like what this commitment, and the court had budgeted, and now we're getting 0.1% on money market accounts. So the interest is not a big deal, but it was a big deal back when we did that. And I was part of the court that voted to do it, and I think Alvin and David were. It doesn't obligate, I don't want anybody to think that, but what I would recommend to this court and support is that we honor this agreement that was made in that budget and proceed with it. There's nothing, John, in the budget for the future. hope that someday there will be, but there is nothing right now. And with that said, we need to vote up or down on what we're going to do. And I will make the motion that we pay the $150,000 that was obligated in the 2013-14 budget.
Second.
Second. Is there any further discussion? If you call the roll, Stacy.
Judge Leslie?
Yes.
Mr. Hostetler?
I'm gonna vote no, and I'd like an opportunity to explain that if I could.
Sure.
I want to, first of all, thank Mr. Lacy. It was a very good presentation last week and a lot to think on. And I've had multiple discussions with folks in my district that I'm representing. And the vast majority of those folks encouraged me to vote no. And with that said, one of the big factors that personally is making me vote no is looking at, as everyone knows, I'm new on this court. Going forward, we've heard from the Sheriff's Department about future needs, Fire Department about future needs. I think we're going to have a huge need in not very many years in our jail, and huge financial needs. And so my parents taught me to, told me that if I counted my pennies and nickels and dimes and watched them, the dollars and so forth would take care of themselves. And so I see potential of having a huge need, and we're at a $2.5 million shortfall. We already know that going forward, so that's my thinking on it.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Corman?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
I'd like to say something. I really don't have a dog in this hunt because I don't have any farms or farmers in my district. But I do realize how important the PDR program is to Scott County and to the farmers of Scott County. And to that end, I will vote yes.
Mr. Livingston?
Yes.
It passes 7-1. No, we will transfer money in this year's budget. It has nothing to do with next year's budget, and we'll move forward with that. At the last workshop, we needed to appoint a member to the health board on the fiscal court, and Mr. Wallace was good enough to volunteer for that job, and appreciate it, and I will recommend that we appoint Mr. Wallace to that board. Need
So moved.
Lands. You want to second that, Chad?
No, sir. I'll second.
All in favor?
Judge, for the record, I want to abstain.
Vote against it. Rick and Bill have done a great job and a hard job on the constable ordinance draft bill, and Glenn has fine-tuned it. I've read it. I see no problem personally with any of it, but it's open for discussion. Bill, you want, or Rick?
Judge, there is one matter of clarification on item number 5. What we discovered in our recent magistrates conference is that across statewide, no other magistrates are required to carry $1 million worth of professional liability insurance because they're covered under KCO, just like fiscal court is. We can require them to carry $1 million in vehicle liability insurance if they have blue lights. But that $1 million worth of vehicle liability insurance would not name Scott County Fiscal Court as being an additional insured party. So we just need to strike the last portion of that sentence. It says where the Scott County Fiscal Court being named as an additional insured on both.
Just from,
On item number 5.
yeah, I see where
From the word-
scratch,
from the
the
word
Scott
annually
County being
on.
named as additional insured.
Yeah. just
Strike it.
Strike that. Everything else, I think we're good to go.
I had one question on item number 7. In the year after the election year, a newly elected constable, he couldn't get here by January 1 because if he came before January 1, he'd be asking a previous, a different court.
Yes.
So we may need to change that timing issue just a little bit for that on the election years when new constables come in.
Okay,
I
Understand
can
what-
add, that's a good point. Just put it on before January 1st of each year,
Maybe
unless
January
an
30th.
election year.
Yeah, and then give the January 30th possibly, just as a suggestion.
well, to your point, it really wouldn't matter, because if the ordinance is in effect, we're gonna live by the same rules.
Yeah, but the constable that was newly elected couldn't come by January 1, so.
Well, okay, you're correct.
See,
I can fine tune that.
So
for you.
if we can get our attorney to wordsmith that a little bit.
Any other?
And one other question, which I don't think we have an answer for, but just, there are no penalties if someone's elected constable, they just go out on their own, and in the unlikely event they just make a nuisance of themselves. There are no penalties here. Are there any in state law that would rein that in, or?
Well, if they were to do something that was an abuse of their authority, there's always official misconduct statute there. There are some statutory controls that all peace officers fit under. You're authorized to revoke their use of blue lights and sirens, but we really don't have, fiscal court does not have any other penalty phase for that, no. That's correct.
I do think, some counties, when a constable takes the oath of office, they make them post a $10,000 bond.
That's done here too.
Okay, so that's also held over the head of, it's a performance bond.
It's state law.
Yeah,
Yeah.
state law.
And that's, the judge's office monitors that as well as the clerk's office, so. That's correct, Bill, that's done wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
So if there is official misconduct, they have that $10,000 bond to fall back on. You can revoke the bond, you can get their attention that way.
Bill, on item number 2, or under section 1, item 2, in the last sentence it says an alternative to the 4-year requirement mentioned above, a recommendation from the Scott County Sheriff may deem acceptable. So I assume, you know, you all have talked with Tony, and Tony would be the one that would, or whoever the sheriff is at that time, would put something in writing to the court that.
If the county sheriff, if we had someone come to us who had, let's say, 3 years experience, or even 2 years experience, and the county sheriff felt they were qualified, the county sheriff could make a recommendation that we accept this person in lieu of the 4-year qualifications. And then it's up to us at that point to either accept or not accept.
So there's no standard in which that they're measured by. It's just years of experience and you know, background check and you know,
Yes.
that type of thing.
And it says may, doesn't say will. Any other questions or comments? I think we're gonna get there. Bill, Rick, but it's done a good job. It's complicated, no question.
What really held us up, you know, is when we got recommendations from all the other counties, we got recommendations, and many of those recommendations they were unable to enforce. So we had to kind of go down that path and throw out the ones that we could and we couldn't. And I think in this event, it's fair to everybody.
Well,
And protects our citizens as
They'll
well.
be coming to us for ordinances.
You know, I've got to tell you, I went up Sunday of our last magistrates conference, and the attorney for CAECO, Rich Ornstein, gave a 1-hour presentation on fiscal courts and constables that was very eye-opening. And there was a lot of mumbling going out through the room, and I kind of sat back with a great deal of pride thinking, yeah, we got this dog about corralled. Everybody else was doing a lot of head shaking and head scratching, and I felt pretty good the fact that we were way out in front of this thing, and that we were going to have this thing solved in the next month or so.
I'll make those 2 corrections
Okay.
and/or additions and circulate, but I think probably scheduled for first reading at the next fiscal court meeting.
Any other comments on that? JR has a vacancy, and he's, I think everybody got a copy of the request. If you didn't, he wishes to hire Michael Scott Canifex at $11.72 per hour with benefits based on a 35-hour week. The applicant has CDL permit and has passed physical fit that would be replacing Tony Wilson, who retired. Need a motion to that effect? Any questions? All in favor? Okay, it is unanimous. Dave?
I have 4 I'd like to recommend for part-time to replace for vacancies on our part-time roster. And these are all no benefits. Brian Bergman, $12.50 an hour part-time EMT. Easton McClanahan, $12.50 an hour part-time EMT. Jordan Miller, part-time EMT, $12.50 an hour. And Kevin Stave, part-time paramedic at $15.50 an hour.
Any questions to Dave on those? I'm gonna take them all at once or one at a time?
I'll make a motion to approve all of them. at the
Okay.
same time.
Bill, second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And we're going on Monday to do the pre-inspection for the delivery of the new ambulance, so it should be here in the next couple of weeks. But we're going to go over and go through it with a fine-tooth comb and get it all lined out, and they'll bring it here and drop it off for us. Thanks.
Thank you. And as Dave brought to our attention a couple of weeks ago, that May the 31st would be his last day. I posted, or Jared actually posted in the buildings from the local, all of our employees to apply for the job. We had 1 application, and it's a good one, Brandon Remley, and I would recommend that Brandon be hired as the new director of the ambulance service at a salary of $60,000 a year. Rick, Bill, any questions?
Yep. How does that compare to what we're paying now?
It would be January the 1st. I didn't bring it. Dave, you would have been, I mean, not January, July the 1st, you'd have been making about 65, wouldn't you? Yeah, David's been, I talked to Brandon, David had been here several years longer in negotiating that, so it's about $5,000 difference. Any other questions? All in favor?
Who seconded that?
Who seconded the motion? I thought she got that.
I have read.
Done.
We had 2 or 3 seconds.
Somebody down there beat you.
Like Bill did.
Bill, okay. The road between Stamping Ground and Great Crossings and the new bypass, I've mentioned that we're gonna have to come up with a name. We've got a mailbox down there now. There's no houses, but the companies that are working on the road, they need to have a mailing address, and I don't have any suggestions, but we're open for suggestions, and whenever we get some, we'll bring them up. Anybody giving that any thought? Bill?
This is the road going from the bypass over to 227 at Great Crossings.
Right.
My wife and I were talking about this on a recent road trip, and she either came up with Buffalo Road or Stampede Drive.
Well, we can do better. That's we got 2 names now.
Judge, I've been thinking about this name and since our workshop, and I talked to JR, and I want to reference him as far as in certain suggestions and names that we already have currently, and maybe a direction we could go. Can we ask JR to come up and come up with some suggestions? Because
I don't want to put him on the spot, but yeah.
Well, I gave him some direction and
Oh.
what I thought we should work in. And
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
JR's going to mention your suggestions. Is that what you're saying? I think it's what I hear. That's what I heard.
we're working cooperatively.
Well, actually, there's been discussion about this road ever since it started construction. It was a long-awaited road, probably 8-10 years, Judge. Am I right?
Ever more than that.
And once construction started on it, it opened up to one of the biggest projects, the road department, which is my baby, that we've had in several years. Been a lot of suggestions over the past year on what this should be named. A lot of good suggestions. Went through the county road names the last couple of days, looking at different situations. And appreciate the opportunity to share my opinion on this. But one that kind of stands out in my mind, and it would be a tribute to someone and well-deserving that was married to a pretty successful candidate or a pretty successful politician for 54 years, kind of the driving force. This lady spent 30 years in the school system teaching our kids about the big life ahead of us. Always had a smile on her face, something positive to say. I'd like to recommend that we name this after Judge's late wife, Betsy Way. And I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to share this. That's my suggestion.
Are we looking for a second?
I think you're looking for it first.
The first?
And I'll second, Judge.
Let me ask one quick question.
Yes,
Taylor.
sir.
On that road, the school owns basically one side?
The left side of it.
Not the road.
No, not
No,
the road.
no, right, the property, I'm sorry. I
Yes.
didn't make myself plain, I apologize. Yeah, the property on, I guess, coming from the bypass on the left side, and then county on the right side.
We're from the road to the creek.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is, are there any other property owners that are gonna be on that? Not, yeah.
If
I just was
there's-
wondering, I didn't think there was.
There's talk of another road going over to the school system off that road, but that'd be a totally separate road across the school system's property.
Right,
But other
that's
than
what I'm
that,
saying.
that's it, yeah.
It's either-
And it would have to have a separate name.
And that would probably be their road.
It would be their road, yes.
Not a county road.
Completely private school system road.
We have a motion on the floor.
In a second.
And a second.
Is there a second?
Yeah, somebody did.
I did.
Chad did.
I don't have words to express.
You don't have to.
All in favor? I'll abstain.
Thank y'all very much.
Mike?
Judge Lusby, members of the court, we surplus the old tanker we had. We replaced back first year. It's an '86 Ford, 4 guys. And I believe Stacy might have emailed you the stuff with the VIN number on it. We like to surplus it. Something else that didn't get on there, we had recently replaced a cooking stove at Station 1. We need to surplus the other one. I've got the serial number. It's an Imperial range. If you want the serial number, I can quote it to you. It's sitting out in the bay. We need to surplus it too.
We're going to junk that. Or
We're gonna junk it, yeah.
Junk the, and
Well, we just wanted to declare it and
Yeah.
get it out of the way.
what I talked to Mike about, we're going to have a surplus auction in the fall, but we're paying insurance on this tanker, and we put it out at seal bids on this one instead of waiting and continuing. And we've had at least one person interested in it, but
We had several other
have you had
departments.
some? So if Mike will contact them and tell them we'll advertise.
We'll put it out, seal bid. Like I say, it really has, I'd really be scared to get it to another department. It has no auxiliary braking, and you know, I mean, if they bought it, it's their baby. But you know, it's just one of the reasons why we replaced it again, because it was so old, but it didn't have any auxiliary braking. Also, if I can, Honey and the dog are asking for permission to go out of town again.
Can you trust Canavy with it?
So
Wait a minute, well, let's get these.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, we need those two items.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, go
How
ahead.
did she verbalize that?
She types pretty well. She does all right. He's requesting permission to go to the International Association of Arson Investigators training that's in Chicago. It's the week of 17th through 23rd of this month. But the training is no cost to the county due to the IAA chapter was going to pay for all that. So it's just basically no cost to us except for, I guess, fuel or whatever you're driving. So there's no cost to us. It's just the dog gets more travel than anybody in the county.
Where's it at, Mike?
Chicago.
Well, I think the new court members know, at any time if somebody goes out of state, they have to get permission from the court. So,
Make a motion.
David, Alan, all in favor? Okay.
And,
Can I ask one quick, when she travels by plane, is she in the hold or does she travel?
No, and don't bring that up to my wife because she rides first class.
Okay.
we went to Washington for the unveiling of the arson dog monument. She sat with us. Every time the plane would go up and come down, she'd slide up and down.
Stewart would actually put her foot up to keep her from sliding.
Yeah, pretty neat. One other thing, just by way of notification, the next meeting, we lost a gentleman to retirement, and we've got a replacement. He's been our guy that retired has been gone now for about a month, and this gentleman is finishing up a hit from Marine Corps, and he was number one on the list. We kind of had to wait for him to get cleared up, so he's good to go. I just want to pass this out to you, and we'll just bring him up for a recommendation for the next meeting.
Thanks, sir.
Is that it? Those are all the items I have on the agenda. Okay.
Chief Porter's here. I forgot to mention it a while ago. I'd like to thank Chief Porter of the Scott County Fire Department Training Officer Ron Miller for coming up and making it possible to certify all the guys at the road department and CPR this week.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you, Mike.
Anyone else?
Just tomorrow's the Super Recycling Day at Toyota, so from 9 to 2 for Scott County residents, so if you got any electronic waste or
Get over here where they can hear you, JR, because.
Speak up, son.
Stand up.
No, tomorrow's the Super Recycling Day at Toyota. You got any electronic waste or chemicals, pesticides, we'll take that, and it's from 9 to 2 at Toyota Gate 7, so thank you.
Gate 7.
Gate 7. Yes.
Jared, I had a lady contact me. They'll take any size television, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Mr. Tostock, Mr. Lyon.
May 26th is the NACO Prosperity Summit, and Mr. Burke brought up a good point this morning that he had not received the invitation. I didn't even think about sending it to fiscal court because we talked about it a couple times, but I'll make sure that everybody gets the electronic invite so you can respond to that. And then also, I received a call or an email yesterday or Wednesday, and the NACO conference, the national conference, is in July in Charlotte, and they've asked if I would come and represent the fiscal court at a roundtable to discuss the Prosperity Summit. And I told them I would be willing to do that as long as it was a success. So the pressure was on them not.
Pressure's on them.
Is that the lie detector test or something? Yeah, the pressure's on them to make sure it's a success for us. But they're paying all the expenses and everything. It'd be nothing.
What's the date when you're going?
The 10th through the 13th of July.
Okay. Sounds good. That's great. Mr. Burke?
No.
So,
Nothing wrong.
Stacy? Being no further business, we stand adjourned.